Claude always wants to publish. It's either local or for sale.
Yeah. And so the problem wasn't that people were saying to Claude, please publish this to Vercel. They were saying, how do I share this with my coworkers? And they would be like, well, why don't we publish it to Vercel? And so you had to kind of...
Is that what you think Claude sounds like?
When it says that.
You think that's Claude's voice?
It's very clearly, when it's not making dumb suggestions, Robert Downey Jr.
Welcome in, everybody. This is AI for Restaurants, a show where two practitioners who actually use AI every day and work with restaurants every day talk about what's really working in restaurants and have some fun along the way. And as always, I have my trusty co-host, Aaron Newton.
I'm Chief Data Officer here at Thinks, and I spent my entire 3-day weekend just trying to find moments to sit down and get some more stuff done with Claude.
Not where I thought you were going with that. And I'm Sterling Douglas, co-founder and CEO at Chowly, a digital marketing suite for independent operators, help make them more money. And likewise, during Memorial Day weekend, I mean, how could you not be doing some Claude and chill? It's my favorite thing to do.
Put on a movie you've seen before and burn some tokens.
Or burning tokens. So I want to talk about a post that you did in the past couple of weeks that I thought was really interesting. And it was talking about the difference between an individual's AI adoption kind of level and the company that they work for's adoption level. And those are two different things that can be in or out of sync. And so I wanted to kind of hear a little bit more about how you think about that and, you know, how you think where you're at Thanks.
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time, I spend pretty much every Friday with a boot camp class of restaurant people, just a new class every Friday. And one of the things that I'm trying to help them unpack is like where their company journey is, but also kind of where their own journey is. And as I talk to them, I start realizing that many of them are in different configurations, where they're behind or ahead or tied with kind of their company growth. And so I spent some time and kind of tried to kind of like quantify that. And what I ended up with was a framework that on the individual level, there's like 7 levels, and I'll just kind of sketch through them real quick.
7. So this is kind of like a game. I'm thinking of like Lord of the Rings right now, where like someone's like kind of on their journey and they get hardened throughout the journey as they learn more and more. Is that the kind of journey you're taking us on?
I don't know. Maybe it's more like, climbing the levels in Jeopardy or something,
ladder.
Or
Jeopardy
like knowledge and experience.
There we go.
Maybe it's career. Maybe it's a video game. I don't know. Whatever.
I'll take Claude Code for 500, Aaron.
Okay, so the seven layers I came up, or levels I came up with on the individual journey, starts with resistant. You know, it's like, I don't use this thing. I'm skeptical or avoid it or have ethical reasons why I don't want to touch it.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's like awareness, where they've tried it, they've had a couple of chats, they've like played with it a little bit. Then they move into like capable. It's like they use it for narrow tasks. They might like draft things. They might have it review things, but it's very manual. You know, like I bring it to AI and then I bring it back to me kind of thing. Integrated is where they start moving towards this AI first mentality, where they're like, I use AI to do everything or to work with me on everything. And so AI starts producing a lot of their work. They direct it and they review its output. They're a daily user and they bring a lot of context to the AI to have it help them. Now at like level 5 is like acceleration. They're building reusable tools. And so their sessions with AI make their next session go faster. Beyond that, they start helping others. So they're starting to turn tools out for other people to use. And they see adoption, and now they're collaborating, and they're moving not only their own velocity, but those around them. And then scale is like org wide. They're building something that the entire team gets acceleration from.
I can think back to my journey through AI and literally map it out perfectly to those levels.
Yeah.
I remember copy and pasting ChatGPT responses from copy and pasting terminal errors and then pasting them back into ChatGPT to write like some very simple Python code. I can remember the first time I had an MCP. I can remember the first time I built an MCP that I could give to someone. I remember when I got the improved skill, so I focused more on context engineering instead of prompt engineering. And I remember now learning how to get stuff, shared and protected and secure in Cloudflare so that it can be used by everybody. I mean, I think that this journey is dead on. This is exactly what I went through.
I feel like I'm still on it. Like that org-wide AI infrastructure, like level 7.
It's
CTO,
definitely the hardest boss. Like
yeah.
if you have to beat a boss on each level, that's definitely the hardest one.
There's one person that thinks that is definitely level 7, and that's our CTO Darren.
So he's like beat Bowser on like the final level.
And I've talked to him about on previous episodes where like I'll be like, oh man, I got a lot done this week, and I will have burned like 1 billion tokens or whatever, and I'll go look and see how much he burned, and he'll be like, he burned like 3 billion tokens, and it's just like.
I'm gonna start taking a drink every time you token flex on this show. I think
no, it's not. No, I'm trying to flex for him.
Drink.
My point though is that like when he ships something for other people to use, like the whole organization just takes a huge leap forward. I tend to ship things that many people use, but don't have quite. So I'm in this multiplying kind of levels, like level 6 is kind of where I think I am.
So that's the individual. So the org has its own levels as well.
Before we get the org, I want to back up.
Yeah.
Okay. Most of the people that I'm like in my bootcamp class, they're in this like capable zone where they're like, they go to AI and they're like, hey, help me write this message better, or help me produce a document that I can send to my board or whatever. And the step from that to integrated, where like AI is doing a lot of work and they're like daily, every task, all that kind of stuff. I don't think you can get there if you're not in a agentic agent. If you're not in Claude Code or Codex application, where it can both see your data through MCP connectors and write to files that are on your computer. And I'm just naming it. Like, I don't think you can actually get out of the capable zone in a normal chat. And so I see a lot of people kind of struggle with that leap. I would say that barrier is right where Cowork hangs out.
Well, you know a lot about Cowork, right? Last episode, you said, yeah, I'm going to spend 7 straight days in Cowork. I'm going to figure it out. You said, no, Sterling, I can do it. No, like I'm on it. It's going to be great. What'd you learn? How many days did you make it?
Oh,
did you make it 7?
0.2.
You couldn't even make it a full day without Claude Code.
No, I was just immediately frustrated by it. And the reason why is, so if we stick on this framework a little bit, you know, I'm going to restate this because this is a podcast and you can't see what I'm seeing on the slide. It's not, we'll share it. But the capable zone is I use it for narrow tasks. I bring stuff to it. Integrated is where it starts doing a lot of work for you and you direct it and you're a daily user. Integrated is what Cowork helps you do. It helps you get out of this chat and then paste and chat and paste. Cowork helps you get to, I work on files and I work through connectors. But if you want to get past that to the next level, which is this accelerating thing where I'm going to read the definition, builds reusable workflows, prompts, templates, automated pipelines, measures impacts, and help teammates adopt. You cannot do this with Cowork effectively. It is definitely helping you get out of chat and into action and agentic work, but it cannot turn into this accelerating kind of stuff. And so as someone who is used to living on a level past that with Claude Code, sticking in Cowork for any period of time is maddening because I want to turn it into something that accelerates.
Yeah, I think I went on a similar journey. I mean, I did the classic ChatGPT to Claude Desktop and then to Claude Code. And in Claude Desktop, you could start using MCPs and you could start connecting to them, but it was a little difficult to make more of those repeatable workflows and to start like linking things together and to start really creating files outside of it. I could create some. There was, back in the day, there's like Command Center was a really popular kind of setup to help do that. But it was tough for me too, Aaron. Like I'd spent some time in Terminal, but not a ton. And when I needed to use Claude Code, it was a bit intimidating. Like I did it, but my theory was that I'm going to give this task 30 minutes and I'm just going to beat my head against Claude Code. And if I can't get in 30 minutes, then I'll go back to Claude Desktop and do the task. And every single time I would get a little bit better and I would get a little bit better. And then similar to you, like I can't imagine going back. Like when you said you were going to go use Cowork, I was like,
yeah,
screw that.
He's not going to make it.
I'm not going there. Like I want to get everybody into Claude Code. I know you can do those things, but I just truly believe that's where we go. We hired the last person at Chowly with no Claude Code experience. Like the most recent hire that we made was a customer success manager, not an engineering, a non-technical role, but I believe we're a tech company and everyone should learn Claude Code. He had used Gemini, he had used ChatGPT before, but he'd never actually used Claude Code. So like as part of the interview process, I was like, we can't hire someone who's never used Claude Code before. We bought him a Max membership, paid for a month, and then gave him 7 days to create a GitHub account and build something in Claude Code and then present it to us. And he actually built something. Yeah, he built something. It was pretty cool. It needed like the Google APIs and authentication, which is really difficult to like truly work. But I mean, it was something that helped the restaurant industry. It was helping add images to the Google Business Profile, which is something that we do. But I didn't really care about what he built. When we did it, I was like, tell me the 10 things that you learned.
Yeah.
And not only did he tell me the 10 things he learned, but during it, he actually had Claude Code build a little text file of the things that it was teaching him. So it actually built the 10 things that he learned so he could just read it off to me. And so like that is the exact type of use case, right? That you want. That's exactly how you want the mind to work, of like how we're using this. And so now our customer success manager now can do this, and we've got more tools that he can more quickly adopt and get set up with, even if he's not quite a master of it.
So this thing about, the personal journey, like you've just kind of crystallized why I talk about it so much, because I think that those kinds of barriers to entry for getting a job at an organization where you would like to work, they're going to start materializing for everybody, not just the software industry. And we kind of talked about this kind of red pill, blue pill situation before, but if there's a restaurant out there and the chief marketing officer and the CEO is like fully into like using this technology to its fullest potential, and they spend tons of time in it, and they're interviewing people who are, one person who is like, I also do that, and another person who says, oh, well, I use ChatGPT to have conversations occasionally. That person on the ChatGPT side or the chat interface side is just at an enormous disadvantage. And likewise, if the hiring manager hasn't spent the time to become fully enabled and they have those same two people in front of them, they literally can't hire the person who is all in.
It's crazy that, so I mean, like this was the very first topic on the very first episode that we did, right? Like literally the
and we're still here.
We're talking about like this. And now it's funny that since then, like everyone's talking about like, oh, like I'm fully AI pilled, or we're only hiring people who are AI pilled. And it's interesting that like, that's exactly what we saw. And it's exactly what we were trying to kind of, get across, and you're just seeing it like continue to kind of be pervasive. And so I think that like one of the things I'm doing is trying to continually to push us. It's really hard to hire a customer success manager with Claude Code experience. Like that's a hard thing to do right now. It'll get easier as time goes on, but that's what we have to kind of continually push the envelope on. And I think that's where you talk about how your individual and your org being lined up, right?
That's
it happens at the hiring stage.
So like now that you mentioned it, I'll name something else. I had one employee who, got approached by another organization, like, hey, we'd like to talk to you. We have an open opportunity. And they told me about it.
It wasn't Chowly, right?
Sterling, we got to talk about it. No, it was not Chowly. But they told me about it. They were like, they had no prayer to get me. and the reason they said that, other than the fact that they like their job and the people they worked with, they were just like, I know that they aren't going as fast as we are on this AI stuff. And I would never step out of this environment because I'm learning so much about it. Yeah. And so that became a retention thing too. It's not only is it a bar to go hire excellent people, but it also is the way that you retain them, because you're creating an environment where they grow so fast. So let's talk about that environment. So in addition to this kind of 7 flavors of personal adoption, I have one for each organization. So the organization one starts with resistant, same. Yep. And it's the leadership is really skeptical about or absent from the conversation about AI. And so they treat it as hype, or it's not for us, or it's a threat. And there's no investment, no urgency coming from the top of the organization. Awareness, level 2, the leadership acknowledges that it's there and that it's a thing that probably, the organization should figure out, but they themselves don't spend time in it at all. And so there's a lot of vendor meetings, but no policy comes out of it, no accountability. Adopted is when AI is being used across the organization, but leadership hasn't yet found their own leverage. And so the conditions for compounding returns don't exist. Like the activity is happening, but ROI is very elusive. And gains stay at individuals who are really into it, but they struggle because there's no cross-functional growth or whatever.
Yeah.
Magic happens at level 4, which is when the organization becomes enabled. The leadership has found their own leverage, and this is critical, They have built the conditions for both sides of the equation. There's both permission, which is policy, budgets, access to tools and data, and the expectation. There's AI proficiency and performance reviews. There's hiring bars for new roles, as you just described.
And that's also when you get the slew of 25 new tools in a week.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the whole organization suddenly hits a gear where
everybody realizes they can build this, and now you've got so many tools you don't even know what to do with them.
So the key is that the organization has what it needs to climb, but it is also held accountable for climbing. Like if we're going to spend this much money on this thing, then it has to pay for itself. Then the next 3 levels are where like you start getting these like exponentially kind of ramps. So I have leveraged as number 5, where people across the organization have found their own leverage, and they've crossed over from like, I do this work to I train AI to do the work. It's a mindset shift for individuals, and it becomes embedded in the workflows across functions. Shared is where personal workflows cohere into team systems. Prompts become templates. Agents become pipelines. One person's skill becomes the team's infrastructure, and AI capability becomes collectively owned. And then finally is compounding, where AI makes live decisions that reach the customer inside defined guardrails.
I was about to ask, like, what is the last level when you actually turn the AI towards the customer, and and it's built into the product more than just like a chatbot that asks about your knowledge base, or like it's actually AI that's performing true actions and true value to
There's
the
more than one
customer.
way for it to solve customer problems. I'll point out that when the business reaches this kind of like enabled and leverage phases 4 and 5, customers begin to benefit because the people serving the customer have become more proficient at their jobs. They're able to do more in service of the customer, but the human is still doing the work. This last one, where AI starts making decisions, it does a couple of things. It starts creating compounding learning loops. You know, every time it takes an action, it determines whether or not it moved closer or further away from its goal. And so it gets smarter as it goes. Yep. And the business is able to pivot faster and read signal faster. And the advantage they get against competitors widens over time because it accelerates. But one version of that is definitely that the AI is talking to the consumer for you. But another version is the AI is making business decisions fast.
The business decision, like I think like talking to the customer is a necessary means. I think that actually performing the actions, like that to me is where the magic happens. Like I talk a lot about the whole idea of like a system of record versus a system of action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And everyone always wants to be a system of record. Everyone wants to be the holder of all of the data and all of that stuff. And I get that. And that is valuable. But right now, like in May of 2026, I actually think the system of action is more valuable because that is what people actually want. Like the best example that I had is when we were able to start actually having like being able to monitor, over 1,000 different Google ad campaigns across all of the geos and stuff. Like it's a very difficult thing to do. But when you can actually get AI agents you give them the principles and you give them the goals and then you give them the tools. Here's how you accomplish the thing. They can go through and do that at such a better rate. So when we finally were able to turn that onto the data, so it could actually look at, here's the data that we've collected over the last 30 days. This keyword's not leading to conversions. This one is. We need to add these ones. We're seeing this bad budget spend, so we can divert those dollars to better performing keywords. And then you have it learn from those. We have a whole findings document. Anytime it learns something or it learns a new principle or a new trend, it adds to this. And then we have another cron that goes through all the findings and tries to codify them into new principles. That loop, that took us a long time to get to, even though the idea was pretty simple and probably existed a year ago. But to actually have what ended up, why I'm tying this back to what you said, is that it wasn't until our team was able to truly kind of internalize a lot of the stuff, for themselves to then understand how they could actually turn it around and make it work for the customer.
Yeah. Once you get to the place where you can see how a tool can compound in its efficacy, the first time that it buys an ad on Google AdWords and it doesn't work well, but it keeps doing it. And then it starts learning, well, when I buy AdWords like this, it tends to drive more revenue than when I buy AdWords like that. In order to create that, you have to feed back the success loop, because it's very good when it understands the goal and it can see whether or not the things that it's trying are moving towards the goal. anyone who's listening to this podcast who has not yet like experienced what I'm talking about is like, I don't even know how to get there, man. I don't know how to get to what you are describing. I'm not naming that compounding loop systemic approach to using AI as a thing an individual unlocks. It is a thing an organization has to unlock. Like,
right.
Yes, one really smart person in the organization might be able to see it, but they actually can't operationalize it if they don't have the buy-in and understanding that is happening across the functions where that thing is exercising its decision-making. All right. So to bring it home, if you were listening to this and you're like, I think I am like at level 4 on this adoption ladder, and I'm working on it, man. I'm trying. I'm listening to your podcast and it's helping a little bit. You guys blather on about stuff I don't understand too much, but I'm at level 4. And then you heard me talk about the organization and you're like, but my boss is totally checked out on this thing. I feel like I'm all alone, or I'm way behind everyone around me. Like this relationship between where you are on this curve and where the organization is on the curve. If you're ahead of your organization, it's an opportunity for leadership. If you're kind of like aligned with where your organization is, it's an opportunity for initiative. And if you're behind where your organization is, then you are in a very uncomfortable position. If you're interviewing for a job, you need to figure out where you are relative to that organization. If you're miles ahead of the organization, you're like, oh, we all have ChatGPT accounts. And you're like, I don't, and you're like way deep. You're like, I am just going to fight a battle here for months to wait for them to catch up to me with no clarity on whether or not they'll ever do it. Versus if you step into an organization where you're kind of like, I feel a little behind from these people and I could learn a lot. Like that is a really good job. Yeah. Really good job.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I do think, and we struggle, not struggle with this, but I've gone back and forth on this in my head a lot, is that when you hire someone who's, whether they're behind or ahead, their first inclination is to build something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Building's fun. And you want to prove that you're either, look, see, I'm at the same level as you guys, or you're trying to prove I'm ahead, right? And you're trying to either take that initiative. And that's actually one of the issues that we have, is that you end up, and I mentioned this earlier, with all these bespoke tools. Or someone builds something and it is really good for them, but the rest of their team doesn't have it.
Yeah.
So now technically they're holding the team back. And I think you and I have disagreed on this in the past. I don't want every single person at a company building new stuff. I want them using the stuff that either myself or our leadership team or our subject matter experts, our SMEs, have built to make them more efficient. I'm more interested in them using great tools that a SME has built, rather than everyone trying to build their own tool and their own set and their own way of doing things.
So I believe inside of every person working at our company is someone who deeply wants to do better at serving a customer. Like every single person at Thanks really wants to make something that helps our restaurant customers in their bones. And when we get, criticism from the customer that, that we aren't building the thing that an individual customer really cares about, or that the way we built it isn't useful to them or whatever, it really stings. We genuinely care about it. I also believe that the creativity that comes from people who are in different functions can flow into the things that we build to bring better service to the customer, even if it's an internal tool. So a customer success manager who builds tools that they bring to a call to help, like a wizard to build a marketing strategy or something like that, that's R&D. That's just like research and development way out ahead of the product team. They're sure. Testing the water on and they understand the customer better because they meet with customers every day. I want that creativity. Me. Yeah.
There's me.
So we just had our hackathon.
So what happens at a hackathon? Don't you just end up with a ton of like half-built tools?
No. So the criteria is, and this was for both engineers and non-engineers. You had until the deadline, which time at desk, if you don't count people staying up late because they want to, is something like 10 hours across like 2 days, 10, 12 hours, something like that. Your task is to use only AI to produce it. So the engineers can't write code. They have to do it exclusively with Claude. And they need to build something that enriches more than just themselves. That was this year's prompt. So they had to build a tool that someone else could use, or they
no more PR fetching tools.
Or, right, they can just build like tools for themselves, which is like a whole thing. Now they're building something that other people can and will use. And ideally they're building something that the customer can use, or that it makes the customer's life better. And it has to land by the deadline at the end of the hackathon, because the next morning we get up and do show and tell. Everybody gets 5 minutes in front of the company just to get up and say, here's what I built. And then we all vote on the winners and people get, a little bit of money. And it's like, but you have to have delivered it. It has to be there. So we had engineers who went into, we have a long list of quality of life improvements that our customers ask us to do that they don't move our roadmap of like big features and, all of that kind of stuff ahead. But it's like they get in the way of our customers just being annoyed or whatever. We had engineers who just went through and plowed through 7 or 8 of those things, small little improvements that just boom, 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 boom. But it resets the brain of the engineer to be like, wait a minute, I could be doing that on the side while I'm building big projects, right? But at the same time, we had people who are customer facing, non-developers building truly useful tools. I'll give you an example. My favorite example from our hackathon. The woman who runs our onboarding team, her name's Tiffany, and she is a ace. 100% of our enterprise brands that go through our onboarding process tell us that it is the best onboarding experience they've ever had with any software vendor. Like, all of them are full of praise. It took a long time to iron out the process to be. That's a really hard
thing to do, as someone who also does a lot of onboarding tech at restaurants. So shout out Tiffany.
Yeah. I mean, it's genuinely one of the strongest things in the business. But one of the problems that she has is that the last stage right before we flip over is for the brand to export their data from their prior vendor, all of their user profile data and like how many points they have and how many rewards are in their account, all that kind of stuff, to give us this data to import. And we have import tools for all of the major providers so that this is a turnkey thing. But the challenge comes when they give us data and it's got a lot of garbage in it.
Yep.
So but it might be 1 million rows. It might be 10 million rows. And so she needed a way to have an agent go look at the file to find the garbage and tell the person giving it to us, like, hey, there's some problems in this file that you need to either address with your former vendor, or we're just going to leave it out of the import, and I don't want you to be surprised. But we have a hard rule at Things, which is that no LLM will ever see the PII of a consumer in our customer's program. And that's a security thing. Like, if our merchants...
So how do you solve for that then? How do you clean and analyze the data without feeding any PII into the model itself?
She built this thing called Glovebox. It is, like in a science lab, they'll have like these transparent boxes with the big rubber gloves so that like the radioactive thing is inside the box.
Yes.
And you put your hand in the glove to touch the radioactive thing, but you don't ever touch the radioactive thing.
Yeah, I've seen a movie.
Yeah. So she built that. She had Claude build itself a glove box. So she described all the kinds of problems that occur in these files. She created a fake version of a file with, Aaron at thanks.com kind of stuff in it. So she was like, whatever, example at example.com, and created kind of like all the kinds of example problems that occur. So she puts this non-radioactive thing in the partially built glove box. And then Claude starts building tools. I haven't looked at the code. It might put it in a database so it can run SQL queries locally. Sure. It might just do file operations or whatever. But now it can come back with an analysis of the entire thing that Claude itself built, but it doesn't actually have access to the file itself. And so it includes in the Claude project specific deny rules, like you can never read a CSV file kind of stuff.
It's very surprising to me and really impressive that type of like responsibility and security came from a non-engineer.
Well, if you think about it, the requirements of what it needs to do, she's the person who knows it. And so if part of the success criteria she gives to Claude is, you must help me achieve these goals in a way where you never can actually have access to read the file, Claude's great at that.
I mean, I had to build a full like unvibe skill to basically take these vibe coded, things from SMEs and go through all of that. Make sure there's no tokens in there and put proper authentication in it, put a real database behind it. Like I think it's very impressive that they were able to kind of get that far with that type of security and responsibility. I think that's crazy impressive.
I mean, so a couple of things. At the beginning, a year ago, when we started really pushing on our whole team to like lean into adopting this. And it took a while. And I would say Claude really is the thing that accelerated it. And March was when it went off the charts. Everybody was shipping something. That whole time, we didn't have a lot of brakes on the cart. We're just trying to get it to have momentum.
All gas, no brakes.
Yeah, just all gas. Like just trying to get people to figure out how to put it into gear and get it to move.
That's the proper adoption curve. First use it. First make it exist. Then
and there was.
It up.
I would say that those of us who understood that had a lot of security risks, we were very diligent in observing what everyone was working on. And, we have automations that look to see if anybody creates a GitHub repo that isn't private, as an example, and that looks at what they push to look for API keys. So we're catching people making mistakes, right? Now that everybody has reached that kind of escape velocity, we're starting to put brakes on it. So in Claude, there's a field in the organizational settings where you can put in 3,000 characters into every single instance of Claude's context window.
Yep.
And what we have is a succinct version of our security policy so that it catches you doing stuff. And it's like, whoa, no, you can't give me an API key. You're not allowed to do that. You need to go rotate that key. Whoa, no, I won't let you publish this to Vercel. The problem wasn't that people were trying to...
Claude always wants to publish. It's either local or Vercel.
Yeah. And so the problem wasn't that people were saying to Claude, please publish this to Vercel. They were saying, how do I share this with my coworkers? And they would be like, well, why don't we publish it to Vercel? And so you had to kind of...
Is that what you think Claude sounds like?
When it says that.
You think that's Claude's voice?
It's very clearly, when it's not making dumb suggestions, Robert Downey Jr.
I agree with all this. I think it's interesting to see your guys' approach to it and versus ours. I mean, for me, it so easily builds things that work on local, and it makes a bunch of decisions to make it work on local.
I think that's actually a fine place for it to run.
It's a good, well, it depends if you ever want it to be used by anybody. So
there's a middle ground there, which is that you have one thing that is accessible to everyone, which is the database. So we allow our team to go create Supabase instances, get an API key for that Supabase instance, build a software tool that talks to that Supabase instance, and then someone else can check out the thing and connect to the Supabase instance. And now we both have a local host running version of that thing that has a shared database. And that's a pattern we use a lot. Lately, I've seen our staff starting pushing those exact same things into Electron apps. So they look like desktop applications that you run, but they're really web applications. But they have a shared database. So there's ways to distribute without putting it on the internet where all the risk is.
Yes, but you're also trusting several more users to have things running on their local where there's a bit less control and governance over it. Like for us, part of the Unvibe skills, everything goes into Cloudflare.
Mm-hmm.
The keys get stored in Cloudflare so that you don't have any raw API keys. Automatically, you get zero trust, which helps with authentication. Automatically, it uses our Google SSO for authentication so that you want to build the app that does the thing, right? So anyone can build that. But when we unvibe it, we're going to do all of the extra layers of stuff to make sure that, all right, it's going to use Snowflake queries to go grab data. Well, there's a bunch of things you need to know to make those queries actually run quickly so that you don't get cold starts. And so that's not super slow. If you just use, like, depending on what you used for your keys, like all of that kind of goes into our Unvibe skill so that we can take something that actually provides value, but get it on something that's managed and that's very easily trackable, that has all of these things out of the box, that uses all the established patterns. And then if you want to make changes to it then, because we've determined that this thing's actually useful and actually something we want the whole team to use, then you just go right back into our operational code base and you can go make pull requests to that particular app, only worrying about the things that it does from a user level, as opposed to worrying about all the infrastructure and all the other things that need to be fixed and protected when it starts out as something that you vibe coded.
I of course agree that putting anything where there's an open port to the internet comes with a great deal of responsibility. The internet, I don't think people understand this. The internet is now constantly under attack. Our entire platform is constantly under attack. If you put a thing on the internet that has an open port, things are attacking it. And so you might think like, I'm just going to put it over here in this little corner of the internet where no one is looking and then send the email or send the URL to my buddy. that URL is under attack.
No one's looking at, I don't know, dot menu or dot pizza or whatever, TLD.
Yeah, no one's looking at my gobbledygook, URL on Vercel. And that's not
they
true.
are.
They are absolutely doing that. And the only thing dumber than putting an application on the internet when you don't have the skill to protect it is to use OpenClaw. The thing that I really want to challenge you though on.
Hey,
I
still, even though I don't use it, I don't stand for OpenClaw slander like that.
I'm gonna make a prediction for you, Sterling, and I'm gonna tell you why this prediction I think has to come true. You will, over time, reach a place where you expect everyone in your organization to be building software in a responsible way. And in order for you to have that expectation of them, you will invest in the both training and infrastructure for them to create things that are safe. And they will not be things that you go and review yourself. You will create environments for them to work where they can't create harm that still unlocks the potential of them being creators. And the reason that you'll do this is because you just said, we've hired our last person that doesn't understand Claude Code. The bar for the people who have a year's worth of Claude Code behind them will be, I know how to build tools. And you will go hire someone who says, I know how to build tools. And then you will be like, well, I guess you should go build tools then, but I need to make sure you're doing it in a responsible and secure way. And they will have a lot of that experience because they've spent the last year doing it before you hire them. And if you care about the people who work for you, and you want them to go get a job after working for you for a year or 2 or 3 or 4, then they too have to be doing those things so that when they walk into an organization that has a similar expectation, that they have spent the last year or 2 learning how to build things securely, that they're prepared for it. And the final reason you'll do it is because there's not enough time to review it all. I would say 60% of my time now is spent reviewing other people's stuff. And I'm already reviewing Claude's stuff that I told it to go do. I'm constantly in review mode. If you funnel all the creativity of the people in your organization through a few human beings who have permission to go do this stuff, you've already started down the path with your unvibe skill. So you're trying to make the work that you do to ensure that someone else's creation is safe. And you're at the beginning of that. It's only going to get better when Mythos comes out and everything, where you can just say to Claude, yeah. So-and-so built a tool. They want to go put it online in our Cloudflare system. Go ahead and run my pipeline to take care of it. I don't even need to be in the equation anymore. You just do it. And that is going to mean that everyone at your organization building software that is shareable within your organization in a secure manner, and everyone you hire will have already met that bar.
I disagree, but we don't have time because that is the end of the episode. And that was a good way to finish it. Today, we talked about the difference between an individual's adoption of AI and an org's adoption of AI, and how the differences on who's ahead in between can mean certain things. We talked about the difference between Cowork and Claude Code, and that Aaron could only last 2 hours in Cowork before crying uncle. We also talked about our different philosophies on who is building things and how they get built, how to run a good hackathon, and talked about unvibing those vibe-coded acts to make sure that they're actually secure and usable by multiple teams. And with that, we'll wrap up episode 9. Any last words, Aaron?
Yeah, if you heard anything today that didn't make any sense to you, just ask Claude.
All right. Thanks, everybody.